Well, sticking with men's hoops, here's a look at some of the best incoming transfers to the Big Ten. You can see maybe the names aren't necessarily all that common to you, but the schools they're coming from certainly are. Great Osobor is a name you might want to know. He's the Mountain West Conference Player of the Year who's following his head coach over to Washington. With that in mind, Andy and I are happy to bring in a man who's not only considered a rising star in the industry, he won the award!
Yes, U.S. Basketball Writers Association Rising Star.
He is John Fanta from Fox Sports, who joins us now. John, before we get to some specifics, let me start off with just your big picture take on where we are right now in the world of college basketball with the transfer portal.
Well, Mike, Andy, it's great to be with you. We're in the wild, wild west on steroids. Look, there's no denying that it's a chaotic state right now with college basketball, and that when you look at this sport, it's crazy because the transfer portal never stops moving. Right now you have guys at the Chicago Draft Combine who are in the portal, could end up still going to a different school or could end up staying in the draft, but they're in the portal, and that just means that the value is only going up. Because if they come back to college basketball, we just saw it with Great Osobor earlier this week. He will make, according to reports, over $2 million at Washington this upcoming season. So this is a crazy market right now. And you have to be able to build an NIL purse that is at least a couple of $1 million to be able to field a team with several star-studded talented players. The good news is in the Big Ten, these programs are all fully stocked. They've got resources. They've got every asset imaginable. But there's no denying that right now when you talk to coaches, when I talk to Big Ten coaches, they're saying, look, I haven't really gotten a chance to breathe since April 6th, and I'm not complaining. But by the same token, doing this every single year makes you wonder, where are we going to be in 3 to 5 years, and will we see some sort of a change? This is one wild climate in college hoops.
2 quick points off of what John just said. First of all, there are 2 players at the Combine that fit exactly that description that Big Ten fans are very familiar with, in Cam Christie from Minnesota and Coleman Hawkins of Illinois. Now, both players on Tuesday said they're all into the draft, but they've got this sort of safety net of the portal that they threw their names in. They certainly could go back to their respective schools. Didn't sound like it, but their value will increase if they withdraw from the draft, and suddenly June 1st, they're out there for the taking. And so that's point number 1. Point 2 is this will dramatically affect summer recruiting because these coaches have to basically mold these teams beginning July 1st.
Right.
And so where do you want to be? You want to be with your team, not all over the country recruiting, for 2 years from now, because you got to get this team together from day one in July, and that's a major shift. And really, the players that get hurt from that are the high school juniors and seniors now.
Is there any? I want your thoughts too. But let me go to John first. Is there any realistic change that could come in the next year or two to help things out?
Maybe an adjustment to the timeline, Mike. And Andy, maybe there's another adjustment that we have where perhaps someone has to choose their next destination by a certain time. Because right now, an athlete has to enter, a basketball student athlete has to enter the portal by May the 1st. That is the deadline in place right now. But they don't have to choose their next destination under any sort of timeline, meaning they can go ahead and hold this process out as long as they would like, and they also can help their value by doing that, theoretically. So I would think that there's so much clamoring right now in college basketball about the fact that the transfer portal opens on what coaches call Selection Monday, the day after Selection Sunday, and how quickly that is, because shouldn't that be the week that we're solely focused on the NCAA tournament, and NCAA tournament coaches are allowed to focus solely on what they've achieved, getting to the big dance, and now playing NCAA tournament games, where right now they have assistant coaches who are in their hotel rooms watching some film of their NCAA tournament opponent, but also looking at the portal, hitting refresh every 5 minutes, so that they don't get lost in the shuffle while they're building their roster. So maybe there's an adjustment there, and perhaps there's an adjustment by when you've got to choose your next destination. Outside of that, I don't see any major shift in the next year. Here's the good news in the Big Ten. Again, these programs are so well equipped to be able to maneuver their way through these different times in college basketball. And you've got a couple of Hall of Fame greats. You've got a couple of some of the greatest coaches of all time in college basketball now getting added in. Some of the best coaches in the country now coming into this league. Guys like Dana Altman at Oregon. How about job Eric Musselman did at Arkansas, now at USC, and Mick Cronin at UCLA, not to mention a rising star in Danny Sprinkle at Washington.
So, to the names that we just put up on the screen, and there are others like Michi Johnson going back to Ohio State from South Carolina, what this portal has done for Indiana, for UCLA, for Michigan, teams that didn't make the NCAA tournament, it allows you to restock really quickly. And with the anticipation that you're not going to be down. For Mike Woodson and Mick Cronin, two coaches that have been in the NCAA tournament. Mick Cronin's obviously, been in the Final Four within the last couple of years. The down is quickly erased if you can stock the portal, which they both did. For Michigan, Juwan Howard out and Dusty May comes in, brings with him one of his players who got to the Final Four with him, and Vlad Golden, an experienced player. From Yale, we'll see if he can make the transition from the Ivy to the Big Ten, although they, years ago, remember Columbia's Mike Smith made that transition as well. So it allows you to erase that quick dip really quickly if you were the present coach or new coach coming in.
Is there a team or two, John, that jumps out to you that from the Big Ten specifically has done the best this year in the portal?
I believe that Indiana could be a top 10 team in the country, Mike and Andy. I think that they have crushed it in the portal, and I am all in on Mike Woodson's group heading into this upcoming season. You think about it, Umar Ballo was as strong of a big man in the portal that you're going to find, but not just Ballo. To bring in Miles Rice from Washington State, he is why Washington State, a program that we have not become accustomed to seeing in the NCAA tournament, why they went dancing for the first time in several years. Hayden Carlisle was a quality addition as well, coming over from Stanford, and Luke Goody from Illinois, they pick up shooting there. Woody went to work, and in Bloomington, they should be hyped about their Hoosiers. I really like what Indiana has been able to do. And I do like what Michigan's been able to do. I think that Dusty May is going to get Michigan going quickly. I love this hire. He is a stud. You don't lead Florida Atlantic on an incredible Final Four run unless you are a stud, and he is one. Not just Vlad Golden, who follows him and has played against power conference opponents. I remember Golden going up against Illinois. Illinois fans might remember that at the Jimmy V Classic last season. Roddy Gale coming over from Ohio State. That is a high-level pickup, and the Buckeyes will be A-OK. I do like Jake Diebler's team. But Danny Wolf from Yale, as Andy alluded to it, I believe he's ready for that transition. This is a nice portal haul in Ann Arbor, and I think there's a whole new wave of energy that I really like out of May. I'm buying the Wolverines in year one of the May era.
So I want to pick up on Indiana because I agree with them. I think Indiana's the big winner so far. In years past, when you lose a Liam McNeely, who was, top 5 player in this class, and initially on social media, all the critics were out to crush Indiana. How can you lose this top player? What does this mean? In years past, it would have meant a lot because you can't replace a talent like that. But now with the portal, boom, they replaced him, and then some. And they've got plenty of talent coming in. McNeely ends up going to UConn, and that's fine. But Indiana was able to replace him. And Mike Woodson, he usually stays above the fray with all the critics. He was able to just sit back and say, wait, I got a plan here.
Right.
For whatever reason, McNeely didn't want to be at Indiana. I can replace that kind of talent, and he did.
And you guys mentioned Luke Goody going to Indiana from Illinois. But, John, there's plenty of people in Champaign who feel really good about where they are right now in the transfer portal. How come?
Well, you bring in Kai Boswell from Arizona, who is an experienced guard and has played a lot of minutes for an Arizona program that was one of the best in the country this past year. So that's a really, really nice get by Brad Underwood, but he wasn't done there. You bring in Kerry Booth from Notre Dame, who figures to help them in the front court. You bring in Ben Humrichis from Evansville, a really quality addition who I've heard great things about. Trey White from Louisville, Jake Davis from Mercer. Illinois, guys, is always going to have the resources and the NIL to be able to be right up there and be able to field a really nice roster. And for this program right now, the momentum is in a tremendous place. You're coming off of an Elite Eight season in which they broke through in the NCAA tournament. That means something year to year because you've got Ty Rodgers back, and I expect him to only get better. And Gibbs Lawhorn as well is an intriguing piece for them. So for Illinois, they're going to have quite a few options. They're going to be able to score the ball once again. And I think Boswell in Underwood's system could be a perfect match. So the folks in Champaign, they should be excited. We know that they want to win it all. Of course they do. But when you make it to the Elite Eight, that was a great step in the Underwood era this past year.
I would say this about Illinois. I think they're batting about 90% in the portal era, with maybe their only miss, Meyer from Baylor, that didn't really work out. I mean, Danger was productive this last year. You know, Harmon Guerriere. You know, obviously, Terrence Shannon. He was a transfer. You know, they hit a home run there on the court with him. So, you know, their batting average has been pretty good. And we'll see. I mean, and of course, Marcus Domas, excuse me.
Right.
You know, he was a home run.
As good as anyone there.
Yeah, a home run for Illinois. So that just, you know, enhances my point that, you know, Meyer, for whatever reason, I didn't think he worked as well system-wise, or Underwood versus Scott Drew. But for the most part, they have batted really well in getting transfers that fit Illinois.
In our final 30 seconds before we let you go, John, I do want to turn to the next step, which is the NBA. Zack Edey had as good a college career as you could ask for from someone, but there's a lot of grumblings about how he will fit in at the next level in this modern era of the NBA. How do you see him fitting in?
Oh, I think he fits in well. I think he's going to have a role in the NBA. I believe that Zack Edey is a guy who is going to, in his rookie season, potentially come off the bench, but play 15 minutes and be that type of guy. And there is nothing wrong with that as a rookie. This is a guy that to stand with shoes at the combine at 7'5" and to possess all of the traits that he possesses while also growing. Matt Painter has talked at length about this. His mobility has gotten so much better. They've worked so hard on him being able to track down players defensively, make things happen when it comes to rim protection. And when you have a presence like that on the interior, on the offensive end of the floor, it changes the way an opposing team has to play. NBA coaches love wrinkles. Zack Edey is the ultimate wrinkle in this draft class, and it's why I believe he will be a top 20 pick, at least on draft night.
The award-winning John Fanta. Great stuff, man. We appreciate your time and your insight. We'll talk to you soon, hopefully.
Thanks, fellas.